What is up, guys? I'm KBHD here, and little do you know, for the past week I've been using this guy as my daily driver. So the day after it won my blind smartphone camera test, I figured, you know what, it's legitimately the people's choice, so I might as well give it a shot. It is not coming to the US officially, but I'm gonna try it anyway. So I put my SIM card in the Huawei Mate 20 Pro, and this is the last phone to be reviewed before the smartphone awards. And this phone's been getting a lot of hype, I gotta say. I did that first impressions video when it first came out, then I sort of laid off it, and it slowly started racking up Phone of the Year awards, and it was people's top choices for 2018. So I brought it back out. It won the contest, so I gotta try it. And I gotta say, I like it quite a bit. Now, I don't love it, and that's really only because of one thing, but I like it a lot. So here's why.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, Huawei really leveled up their design game with this phone. I think the hardware is on point. It's kind of closer to Samsung design actually than anything, with the shape of the phone, the glass on both sides curving over the sides, the really thin rails. This is gonna be a slippery phone without a case on it, so I'm warning you that right now, but it does have a slight texture, like this subtle raised pattern in the glass. It's kind of hard to describe, but it makes this sound when you drag your fingernails across it. I actually like it. To fix the slipperiness though, you might be better off covering it up with a skin from our channel sponsor, dbrand. Personally, I think going with the red on the back, even though it's a little loud, it matches the red power button pretty well. But they have plenty of other options as well, so if red's too loud for you, I'll link the rest of those below. But anyway, yes, I love the colored power button. That's a strong move right there. And then the triple cameras plus the flash on the back kind of look like bug eyes, but I think in the middle it looks fine. And since the power and volume buttons are all on one side, the left is totally smooth and blank. But yeah, overall it just feels in the hand like a Galaxy S9 has a baby with an iPhone, meaning you get mostly Samsung design features and then that notch. And then there's an IR blaster at the top, if you're into that. I haven't had an IR blaster in a phone in a really long time, but these used to be super useful. IP68 water resistance, check. USB-C port, check. In-glass fingerprint reader, check. Thin bezels, check. Speaker grill, no check. So the speaker is actually behind the USB-C port in this phone, so there's no other speaker grill. It seemed like a cool idea for about 5 seconds, but then it turns out to be a horrible idea. Like, the speakers themselves aren't that bad, it's the one in the earpiece and then the one at the bottom behind the port. But putting it behind the USB-C port makes it extremely easy to block the whole thing by accident at any time. And even though I do mostly wireless charging with this phone, how do you expect it to sound when you're plugged in? It's muffled all the time. So this speaker behind the port was not the move. Otherwise though, all around great hardware. And then you get a great display at the front too. So a 6.4-inch OLED, and it's 3120 by 1440, so super sharp, and it gets plenty bright in daylight. And like I said, it has this Samsung look, so the shape sort of curves over on both sides, and then the back does it too. And it also has a notch up top, which again, at this point, I don't really mind anymore. Almost every phone has one of some sort. Plus you get all the same Face ID sensors, so at least they're using that space well for something. But the weird part is on the sides of the display, there's this little bit of light fall off, like it gets a bit darker and discolored on the very edges in a way that I don't think I see really on Samsung phones. And there's also a pretty obvious color shift off axis like some other OLEDs. It's a pretty good display, but it's not perfect. And then performance is great. Now again, since it's not coming to the US, you'll notice this is one of the few phones that's not rocking a Qualcomm Snapdragon chip. It's actually the Kirin 980, so it's a 7nm chip. And there's 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, and it's pretty smooth for the most part. I'd say on par with any Samsung phone, like an S9 or something. No problems with multitasking, opening and closing apps, etc. Where the chip really shines, however, is definitely battery life. The best part of this Mate 20 Pro, 100%, is not the camera, it is the battery. So it's a 4,200 milliamp hour cell, even though the phone's not that thick. And Huawei's power management is pretty aggressive about trying to save power. It's changing the resolution of the screen when you're not using it much. It's pretty active about killing apps in the background. But the result has been by far the best battery life in any phone I've used this year. This has been a 2-day phone for me a couple times. I don't get to say that much, so that's really impressive. A lot of the other flagships this year that had the best battery life for my heavy use were getting like 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, which is really impressive. Mate 20 Pro, the other day, I think last week, I had a day where I ended with 4.5 hours of screen on time at about 1 a.m. and there was 58% battery left. Wow, I really do not ever think about charging this phone. There's constantly more battery than I need. I usually end with 6-7 hours of screen on time before I have to charge. And when I do, I pop it on the wireless charger. It's unreal. This is, no one can convince me this isn't an A++ battery life phone. And then it also has this head-turning feature, reverse wireless charging. It is a gimmick that I'll pretty much never use, but it's also hilarious and amazing, and I'm glad it works, and I'm glad they did it. Basically an extremely useful troll for people, and you also get to offer them a charge. But of course, the most hyped part about this phone was the camera, and for good reason. So you're rocking triple cameras on the back with a flash. You get a 40 megapixel main sensor, an 8 megapixel telephoto sensor, and a 20 megapixel super wide angle. Those are big boy numbers. Honestly, to me, with the results, it's an A- camera, meaning it's pretty good, almost great, but not quite the best. Definitely sticks to what won the blind contest, which is bright photos. Pictures from the Mate 20 Pro are often very bright, sometimes overexposed, but it has good enough dynamic range to not lose a bunch of highlight detail. And there are basically never any shadows. Now the detail and the sharpness are A+, which I love to see, and the colors were a bit muted at times. There's definitely a different sort of color science with this Huawei processing, but really when there's a lot of light, there's just no contrast, absolutely no shadows, no blacks. When you get down to low light, it holds up pretty well though. I messed with the night mode a little bit as well, which did better noise reduction, but really the best part about the camera is just the extra focal lengths. Having that super wide angle camera sometimes is pretty cool. The telephoto, less useful to me, but I'm glad it's there. But really it's just all around super versatile, and I don't think anyone capable of a little photo editing will really hate it. And also it's probably gonna end up the highest ever DxOMark score again if they ever review it. So if you care about that, there you go. So clearly there are a lot of reasons to like this phone, but I said at the beginning there was something that didn't quite measure up. And for me, that's the software. So this phone runs EMUI on top of Android Pie, so I'm glad it's the latest version of Android. And it has all kinds of quirks and usability things. Some of them are nice, some of them you may like, but others I'm really not into. I'll be real, I had to put a little extra work to get it just the way I want. So I installed Nova Launcher, I uninstalled a bunch of other duplicate apps. Some others don't go away, so I have to disable them or hide them. I changed the keyboard, I changed the default apps, all kinds of stuff like that. Sort of built my way into it. It takes more work for some phones, less for others. But I got it the way I want it, and I've been using it. And then there's just a lot of bugs. So the multitasking one is my personal least favorite. Every time I try to open the second most recent app with one tap, it just closes multitasking. Not sure why it does that. And I hate it because that's something I want to do all the time, but it won't let me. The notification tray also is always filled up, even when I have no notifications. So if I get one or two, I don't know which ones they are and what order they are unless I open the tray and scroll down through them. Poor use of the notch there. And you can disable the notch, but it still doesn't fix that problem. And there's still all the blatant copying of iOS, the share sheet with Huawei Share instead of AirDrop, still all that bloatware, duplicate apps, all of that. So I'm still not a fan of EMUI, that hasn't changed. But everything else about this phone is really damn good. The only downsides that I can point to about the actual physical hardware are the speaker, like I mentioned, and the in-glass fingerprint reader is a little bit slow, just like the other first-gen ones that are out right now. Hopefully that will get faster, but the rest of the phone is very complete. I think I would love this phone with Oxygen OS or even Pixel's like stock Android with a bunch of those features. But either way, this is still the best phone Huawei's ever made, hands down, better than P20 Pro. And if you don't mind paying the premium and importing it, then this is worth a look. Definitely worth checking out. Either way, that's pretty much it. I guess now that we've reviewed this last phone, we can dive into the smartphone awards for 2018. That's upcoming. Either way, thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.